What if I told you that every dollar in your pocket carries more than value? It carries purpose. That the money you earn, spend, and save isn't just fueling your life, it's revealing your heart. You've worked hard. Maybe longer hours than you wanted. Maybe for jobs that didn't inspire you. And still, there's a nagging feeling, like something is missing. Like no matter how much you have, peace feels distant. Like you're chasing security but never quite catching it. Why is that? Because money was never meant to be just about survival. It was meant to reflect your values, your mission, your faith. And when your finances are disconnected from what truly matters to you, especially your spiritual beliefs, they become a source of stress instead of strength, a burden instead of a blessing. But here's the powerful truth: you can change that. Today, we're diving into something deeper than budgeting tips or investment strategies. We're going to explore how you can align your finances with God's will, not just because it sounds good, but because doing so changes everything. This is not about giving up control. It's about stepping into greater clarity, greater peace, greater purpose. Because when you start seeing money as a tool for divine impact, not just personal gain, your entire relationship with it shifts. Let me ask you something. When you look at your finances, do they reflect the person you believe you were created to be? Do they support the dreams you feel deep in your spirit? Do they honor the values you claim to live by? Or do they pull you in a different direction, toward fear, toward comparison, toward constant worry? Here's what research shows. People who live in alignment between their values and their spending report higher levels of satisfaction, lower stress, and a stronger sense of meaning in life. So imagine what could happen if you realigned your finances with your highest calling. Imagine waking up without financial anxiety. Imagine having confidence in your decisions. Imagine knowing that every dollar you earn and use is part of something bigger than yourself. That's not wishful thinking. That's what happens when you begin to steward your resources with intention and with faith. Now let's talk about identity, because before we even touch numbers, budgets, or bank accounts, we have to understand who we are in relation to money. You weren't made to be controlled by it. You were made to lead through it. Every choice you make with money either moves you closer to your divine assignment or pulls you further away. If you've been taught that money is evil, then you may subconsciously reject abundance, even when it comes your way. If you've been raised believing that wealth equals success, you may find yourself chasing more and more without ever feeling satisfied. But neither of those beliefs line up with the truth. The truth is, money is neutral. It's not good or bad on its own. It's simply a resource. What gives it power is the heart behind it. God doesn't want you broke. He wants you responsible. He doesn't want you greedy. He wants you generous. He doesn't want you enslaved by debt. He wants you free to give, to grow, and to go where He calls you. So how do we get there? By understanding that our finances are not just practical, they are spiritual. They reveal what we trust. They show what we prioritize. They expose what we fear. And once we recognize that, we can begin the process of transformation, not just in our bank accounts, but in our souls. Because when you start managing money according to divine principles, something incredible happens. You stop living reactively. You stop being ruled by fear. You begin walking in faith, making decisions based on truth rather than pressure. And that shift, that inner shift, is what unlocks true freedom. So take a moment right now. Think about the last time you felt completely at peace with your finances. Really think about it. Was it when your account was full? Or was it when you made a decision that aligned with your deepest values? Chances are it was the latter, because peace doesn't come from perfect numbers. It comes from knowing you're doing the right thing, even when the road is uncertain. And that's exactly where we're headed, toward a place where your finances aren't a source of stress, but a source of strength, where your income becomes an instrument for impact, where your giving reflects your gratitude, and where your saving demonstrates your trust. This journey starts with one simple realization. Your finances are not just about money. They are about mission. And when you align them with God's will, you unlock a life of purpose, peace, and powerful impact. So, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover will not only change the way you see your money, it will change the way you see yourself. And that's worth listening all the way to the end for. You now understand that your finances are not just about numbers. They're about identity, about values, about purpose. And when you begin to see money through that lens, something shifts inside you. No longer is it just a tool for survival or a measure of success. It becomes a reflection of who you truly are and what you believe in. But knowing this truth is only the beginning, because understanding your financial identity means nothing if it doesn't lead to action. It's one thing to say, I want my money to honor God. It's another thing entirely to live it out. So let's talk about fear. Yes, fear, because deep down, many of us are held back not by lack of knowledge, but by fear disguised as logic. Fear that we won't have enough. Fear that we'll make the wrong decision. Fear that trusting God with our finances might leave us exposed. That fear is real, and it's powerful. In fact, neuroscience tells us that fear activates the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fight or flight responses. When that happens, your ability to think clearly, make wise decisions, and act courageously shuts down. That's why so many people stay stuck, even when they know better. They're not held back by their bank account. They're held back by the emotional weight of uncertainty. But here's the breakthrough. Faith is the antidote to fear. Not blind faith, not reckless faith, but intentional, informed, action-based faith. Faith that says, even though I don't see the whole path, I trust that taking the next right step will lead me forward. And when it comes to aligning your finances with God's will, that kind of faith changes everything. Let's be honest, trusting God with your money can feel risky. What if I give more and then I don't have enough? What if I take a step of faith and things get worse? Those thoughts are normal, but they're not true. Because every time you choose faith over fear, you open the door to divine provision. Every time you release control, you invite God to show up in ways you never imagined. This isn't wishful thinking, it's spiritual law. The Bible says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing. Proverbs 3:9-10. That's not a promise of instant riches. It's a declaration of trust, of stewardship, of alignment. When you put God first in your finances, you're not giving him leftovers. You're giving him your best. You're first. Your priority. And when you do that, you shift from living in lack to walking in abundance, from reacting to circumstances to responding with confidence. Because once you learn to trust, you stop basing your peace on your paycheck. You start basing it on your purpose. Now, let's talk about giving, because giving is where faith meets action. It's easy to talk about trusting God. It's much harder to actually give when you're not sure where your next dollar is coming from. But science backs this up too. Studies show that people who practice consistent generosity experience higher levels of happiness, lower stress, and greater life satisfaction. Why? Because giving connects us to something bigger than ourselves. It reminds us that we were made to bless others, not just protect ourselves. And when you give with intention, not obligation, you declare that you believe in abundance, not scarcity. You declare that you trust God to provide. And that declaration has power. It changes your mindset, it transforms your heart, it redefines your relationship with money. So ask yourself, how are you currently handling your finances? Are you holding on tightly out of fear? Or are you releasing with faith? Are you budgeting based on worry? Or are you planning with purpose? Because when you align your finances with God's will, you stop managing money out of desperation and start stewarding it with vision. You become a channel for blessings, a partner in provision, a leader in generosity. And that's when your finances stop being a burden and start becoming a legacy. One built not on how much you earn, but on how you use what you've been given. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of fear begin to lift. Feel the presence of faith rise within you. Because today is the day you choose to stop letting fear define your financial future. Today is the day you decide to walk in trust, to give with confidence, to manage your resources with integrity, and to align your finances not with anxiety, but with divine purpose. Because when you do that, something incredible happens. You begin to see miracles unfold. Not because money suddenly flows in abundance, but because your heart begins to align with heaven, and that changes everything. You've already begun to shift your mindset. You understand now that your finances are not just about money. They're about identity, purpose, and trust. You've faced the fear that once held you back and replaced it with faith. You've seen how giving is not a loss, but an investment in something greater than yourself. But knowing all of this still leaves one powerful question unanswered. What are you going to do with what you've been given? Because faith without action is empty. Vision without execution is just a dream. And if you truly want to align your finances with God's will, then you must step into stewardship, not just occasionally, but consistently. Not just when it feels easy, but especially when it feels hard. This is where most people stop. They feel inspired, they hear the truth, they even believe it. But then life comes crashing in, bills pile up, unexpected expenses hit, the noise of the world drowns out the clarity you once had, and suddenly the vision fades. That's why we have to go deeper, not just into belief, but into discipline. Because aligning your finances with God's will isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily choice, a lifestyle, a commitment to live differently than the world around you. Think about this. Every time you spend $1, you're casting a vote for the kind of life you want to live. Are you investing in temporary comfort or eternal impact? Are you feeding fear or fueling faith? Are you building a life based on scarcity or stepping boldly into abundance? These aren't just financial questions, they're spiritual ones. And here's the truth. The way you handle money reveals where your heart truly is. So let's talk about budgeting. Not as a restriction, but as a declaration of your values. Most people see budgets as chains, something that limits freedom. But the reality is, a well-planned budget is one of the most liberating tools you can have. It gives you control. It brings clarity. It removes the chaos from your finances. And when you build a budget that reflects your spiritual priorities, something shifts. You no longer spend out of habit. You give with intention, you save with purpose, you earn with direction. Because now every financial decision becomes an act of alignment. You don't just pay bills, you fulfill your mission. You don't just buy things, you invest in peace. You don't just manage money, you steward a divine assignment. And when you start seeing it that way, your entire relationship with money changes. Let's be honest, this doesn't happen overnight. There will be days when temptation whispers in your ear. Days when fear tries to take over again. Days when you wonder if it's really worth it. But remember this, every small step you take toward financial alignment is a giant leap toward spiritual freedom. Every time you choose generosity over greed, every time you prioritize giving over getting, every time you say no to debt so you can say yes to destiny, that's when you begin to break free from the patterns that kept you stuck. That's when you start living not by impulse, but by purpose. And here's the beautiful part. As you grow in financial maturity, you also grow in spiritual strength. You become more disciplined, more intentional, more at peace. Because when your finances are aligned with God's will, you stop chasing after security. You start walking in it. You no longer look to your bank account for validation. You no longer measure success by material gain. Instead, you find fulfillment in stewardship, in service, in sacrifice, because you know that true wealth isn't what you accumulate, it's what you give. And the greatest reward? Knowing that your finances are not just funding your life, they're advancing His kingdom. So take a moment right now. Ask yourself, am I managing my money, or is my money managing me? Am I holding on to resources out of fear or releasing them with faith? Am I living for myself, or am I investing in something far greater? Because the answers to those questions will determine not only your financial future, but your spiritual legacy. And if you're ready to take the next step, if you're ready to move from inspiration to implementation, then commit today to live differently, to plan with wisdom, to give with boldness, to trust with courage. Because when you align your finances with God's will, you're not just changing your bank account, you're transforming your life. And that transformation starts now. You've already made the most important decision to stop living by accident and start walking with intention. You've faced your fears, shifted your mindset, and begun aligning your finances not with desperation but with divine purpose. Now it's time to take the next step, because inspiration alone won't change your life, only action will. And the most powerful action you can take today is this. Commit to a plan that reflects your values, honors your faith, and builds a future that outlives you. Let's talk about strategy, because aligning your finances with God's will isn't just about belief, it's about discipline. It's about turning vision into habits, turning faith into structure, and turning good intentions into consistent actions. Think of it like this. Faith is what gets you started, but planning is what keeps you going. Without a plan, even the strongest intentions get lost in the noise of daily life. Bills come in, urgency overrides importance, distractions pull you off course, and before you know it, you're right back where you started, overwhelmed, discouraged, and questioning whether real change is even possible. But it is. Real change happens when you build systems that support your purpose, when you create rhythms that reinforce your values, when you set up boundaries that protect your peace, and when you design a financial plan that doesn't just manage money, it advances mission. So let's break it down. Start with clarity. What are your highest priorities? Not just financially, spiritually. What does it look like to live a life that honors God with every dollar? Maybe it means giving consistently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Maybe it means saving with trust instead of fear. Maybe it means earning with integrity no matter the cost. Or maybe it means stepping away from debt so you can walk freely toward your destiny. Whatever it is, define it clearly. Then build your budget around it. Not just numbers on a spreadsheet, but a reflection of your deepest beliefs. Your budget is more than a list of expenses. It's a declaration of your values. Every line item tells a story. Every allocation reveals what you truly believe matters. So if generosity is important to you, make it a priority. If freedom from debt is part of your calling, make it non-negotiable. If investing in others is central to your mission, build space for it. This is how you begin to steward your finances with purpose. And here's the secret. Consistency beats intensity every time. You don't need a perfect plan to start. You just need to start. Set up automatic giving so you never have to debate whether to give. Create separate savings buckets so you always know where your money is going. Track your spending so you stay aligned with your goals. Small steps, done daily, lead to massive transformation. And as you keep showing up, making choices that reflect your faith, something incredible begins to happen. You start to see results, not just in your bank account, in your heart, in your confidence, in your clarity. Because when you live intentionally, you begin to feel the weight of alignment. You stop second-guessing your decisions. You stop fearing the unknown. You start trusting the process because you've seen it work. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything else. Now, let's talk about accountability. Because growth thrives in community. You were never meant to walk this journey alone. Find someone who shares your values, someone who will ask you the hard questions, someone who celebrates your wins and challenges your excuses. Whether it's a trusted friend, a mentor, or even a financial partner, having someone to walk alongside you makes all the difference. Psychology confirms this. People who share their goals with others are far more likely to follow through. So don't keep your vision to yourself. Speak it out loud, write it down, make it real. And then take action, knowing that every choice you make today is shaping the future you want tomorrow. Because this isn't just about money, it's about legacy, it's about impact. It's about stewarding what you've been given in a way that honors God and blesses others. So ask yourself one final question. Am I willing to do whatever it takes to align my finances with His will? Are you ready to give with boldness, to save with wisdom, to earn with integrity? If your answer is yes, then the path is clear. Start now, plan faithfully, act courageously, and watch as your finances become not just a source of provision, but a platform for purpose. Because when you align your finances with God's will, you unlock a life of true abundance, one built not on wealth alone, but on wisdom, faith, and divine direction. And that kind of life, that's worth every step. You've come a long way. You started by facing the truth that money is more than just numbers. It's energy, influence, and purpose. You've shifted your mindset from fear to faith, from scarcity to stewardship. You've built a foundation of trust, created a plan rooted in values, and committed yourself to daily action that aligns with divine purpose. Now it's time for the final leap. Because everything you've done so far has been leading to this moment, the moment you fully step into the life God designed for you. Not a life of excess or luxury, but a life of peace. A life where your finances no longer control you. You control them with wisdom, courage, and clarity. A life where every financial decision reflects who you are, what you believe, and why you were created. This is the place where stress gives way to strength, where anxiety turns into alignment, where uncertainty becomes opportunity. And it all starts with one simple yet powerful shift. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start declaring, what if I succeed? Because failure is not the end, it's the process. Every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. Every mistake is a lesson toward mastery. Every challenge is an invitation to grow stronger, wiser, and bolder. You don't have to be perfect to walk this path. You just have to be willing to give even when it feels uncomfortable, willing to save even when you want to spend, willing to earn with integrity even when shortcuts tempt you, willing to trust when logic says otherwise, willing to lead with generosity when the world leads with greed. That's the mark of true spiritual maturity. And here's something most people never realize. Your finances are not just about you, they're about impact. Every dollar you invest in alignment with God's will ripples outward. It touches lives. It builds communities. It fuels movements. You may never know the full extent of how your choices affect others, but heaven knows, and that's what matters. So imagine 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what would your life look like if you kept walking this path? What would your peace be worth? What would your freedom feel like? What kind of legacy would you leave behind? Would you be known as someone who held on tightly out of fear, or as someone who gave boldly, lived intentionally, and trusted deeply? Would your finances be a source of stress or a platform for purpose? The answer lies in the choices you make today, because small decisions compound into massive results. One act of generosity inspires another. 1 month of discipline leads to another. 1 year of faithful giving opens the door to divine increase. And over time, those choices create a life that doesn't just survive, it thrives. A life where you wake up knowing your finances support your mission, not distract from it. A life where you sleep in peace because you've done the right thing, even when it wasn't easy. A life where every dollar flows with intention, not impulse. This is the power of alignment. And you already have everything you need to live it. You have clarity. You have conviction. You have courage. Now you just need consistency. Because transformation isn't a single event, it's a daily decision to keep showing up, to keep choosing faith over fear, to keep building habits that honor your values. And every time you do, you reinforce who you are becoming, not just financially, spiritually, emotionally, in every area of your life. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of past struggles begin to lift. Feel the presence of purpose rise within you, because you are not the same person who started this journey. You are stronger, you are wiser, you are freer, and you are ready. Ready to walk in alignment, ready to steward with excellence, ready to live a life where your finances reflect your highest calling. No more hesitation, no more waiting, no more second guessing. Just bold, confident, intentional movement forward. Because when you align your finances with God's will, you unlock a life of true abundance, not measured by wealth alone, but by wisdom, faith, and divine direction. And that life, it starts now.